The 2023 NFL regular season is over. It's time for the rookie review. Welcome back to the Green Means Go channel. It's your host, me, and we'll address the elephant in the room. That is not actually to enhance the YouTube video. It's to cover this. Yes, I'm showing you my real life. My pipes froze. It's like negative 10 degrees here, and I'm trying to heat up the under the sink. It's a mess. We got a mess, okay? And so that has caused a delay. We actually had the sink overflow with water because we set it on a drip so the pipes wouldn't freeze, and then the drain pipe froze, and then the drips filled up, and we didn't come upstairs for 2 days, which is our own fault, and the water spilled out everywhere and leaked all on our downstairs. So it's been an absolute ride the last few days, but I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad I'm finally able to make this video. I actually had someone comment on one of my videos asking me to do a rookie boom or bust, and I thought that's not a bad idea. So we're going to go through about 20 rookies in this video. We're going to talk about what round they were taken in, some of their stats, and then the grade that I've given them for this year. And remember to do all that fun YouTube stuff if you like the content. We will start with the first overall pick, and that was Bryce Young out of Alabama. His year was very underwhelming, and I don't know how much of it is his fault. We know that the Carolina Panthers were not a great team. I don't think he had a ton of weapons to surround him. He had 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, which is actually a horrible ratio, and he averaged a 33 QBR, which was actually almost dead last in the league. I've given Bryce Young a D for this year. In round 1, pick number 2, we have C.J. Stroud, probably the rookie of the year this year. He had 4,100 passing yards, which is actually third in NFL history for a rookie. His touchdown to interception ratio was 23-5, which actually led the NFL, not just a rookie stat, just led quarterbacks in general. And he was able to win the division title and then beat the Browns, as we saw in the wild card a few days ago. So I've given C.J. Stroud an A for this year, and maybe that's too critical. Maybe he's an A+ guy. The third rookie we'll talk about is Bijan Robinson. He was drafted round 1, pick number 8. He did have 1,400 total yards and 8 TDs, and I think those stats are fine. And again, maybe C+ is a little too critical. I just think he was very hyped up. I think there was a lot of expectations for him, and I know the Falcons let down a lot of people this year, and it's hard to say what that team really is. You would think with the young talent that they have with Ritter and Robinson and Pitts and London, they would have been able to do more offensively. So I realize that these are okay stats, and I know that Tyler Allgeier's in the backfield, and I know that Cordell Patterson's in the backfield, but I was a little bit underwhelmed. I know he went in the first round of a lot of fantasy drafts, and so people would have been disappointed in that respect. So I've given him a C+. I think he can only move up from here. The fourth player we'll talk about is Jibreel Gibbs, round 1, pick number 12. He had 1,200 total yards, 11 touchdowns, and I think that is incredibly impressive considering that David Montgomery was the lead back in Detroit. This guy had to fill a role for this team rather than be the role for this team. So I've given him a B for his performance this year. We see the Lions are still in the playoffs. He's still making plays. I think he's one of the more elusive, shifty backs I've seen in some time. This guy is hard to tackle. I'm excited for his career. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, round 1, pick number 20, which actually set off a chain, an absolute chain of rookie receivers taken off the draft board, which we'll see for the next few picks. 628 yards and 4 touchdowns. I've given him a C-. I think his first half of the year was kind of wasted. He didn't do much the first half. He really started to pick it up later on in the year, but he is fighting for receptions with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and I know Geno Smith's year was kind of underwhelming, at least to me as a Seahawks fan. So again, I'm optimistic that Jaxon Smith-Njigba will be a great player in the NFL, and if they get a quarterback in there who is able to throw the ball, and you know, Pete Carroll's out. Pete was always kind of a run-first guy, so I think this is his floor. These stats are his floor, and I think he will have a much better career going forward than his rookie year. And pick 21, right after Jaxon Smith-Njigba, was Quinton Johnston, and this may have been one of the biggest busts of the year. 431 total yards and 2 touchdowns. I've given him an F, and here's why. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were both injured quite a bit this year. I know Justin Herbert also went down late in the year, but he was the 3rd wide receiver on the depth chart, and when Mike Williams goes down whenever he did, which I want to say was middle of the year, I'll put the stat up on the screen, I feel like he should have stepped into that number 2 role in an offense that was very pass heavy, and he just was not able to do much in this offense. So I think this was an awful year for Quinton Johnston. I don't think it's fair to label him a total bust yet, but he does need to pick it up going into 2024. The 3rd wide receiver taken off the board at pick number 22 was Zay Flowers. He played for Baltimore this year, had 900 yards and 5 touchdowns. Baltimore's passing attempts per game, though, was 30th. So they were throwing the ball basically dead last in the NFL, and he was still able to have these stats. I think he was Lamar's favorite target by what I've kind of gathered and what I kind of witnessed this year. So I've given him a B+. I think it was a solid year for Zay Flowers. Jordan Addison was the fourth receiver taken in a row at pick number 23. He had 911 yards and 10 touchdowns, which actually led rookie wide receivers this year. I think he was a beneficiary of Justin Jefferson going down with an injury. I've given him also a B+. I know he went through it with Kirk Cousins and then Joshua Dobbs and then Nick Mullins, so he was kind of in a tangled mess in the passing game, learning from different quarterbacks. So again, I don't think this was a wasted rookie year. I think it was solid. Again, 10 touchdowns, first in the National Football League for rookies. Moving on to round 2, at the 33rd pick overall, we have Will Levis. And I feel bad for this guy, which is why I've just thrown it as a C, just a very average, basic C. He played 8 games and his record was 3-5. He got a massive win, a massive comeback win in Miami late in the year. And I feel for him because they draft him, but then they say you're not going to start above Ryan Tannehill, and then Ryan Tannehill goes down, so then he has to start. I think it would have been wise for this team to say, Ryan Tannehill, you mentor this guy. And we start Will Levis, and it was kind of a wasted year anyway. You know, Mike Vrabel gets fired, so I don't know if I agree with this decision. Obviously, Tannehill won some games, but I think Will Levis could have benefited, especially for the longevity of the Titans franchise. Will Levis could have benefited, and the Titans could have benefited from him starting week 1 and playing the season. Following Will Levis at pick number 34 is Sam Laporta. I've given Sam Laporta an A+. 86 receptions, which is a rookie tight end record, 10 touchdowns, and 889 total yards. A fantastic year out of Sam Laporta. He really added a dynamic piece to this Lions offense. Again, nothing critical to say about him this year. Rashid Rice went in the second round, pick number 55, 978 total yards and 7 touchdowns, which actually led Kansas City's offense in the receiving category. Yes, more than Travis Kelce. I've given him a B-, and when you think about this offense and what this offense was able to do in years past, and then you look at their situation this year, they took a massive step back. And you would hope a guy like Rashid Rice could help them continue to keep pace with what they've always been able to do. And they have Travis Kelce. And, a lot of people were blaming the receivers this year. It's not Patrick Mahomes' fault. It's the receivers' fault. I don't know. I think this was a good year for Rashid Rice, but it wasn't spectacular, which is why I've given him a B-. But I'm willing to admit that may be a little too critical. Tank Dell comes in at the 69th overall pick of round 3, and this is one of the steals of the draft, in my opinion. He and CJ Stroud started off with tremendous chemistry. Now, keep in mind, this guy only played 10 games. He was injured for 6 games, missed the last 6 games of the year. He had 709 yards and 7 touchdowns, and with the pace that CJ Stroud continued even when he was injured, I would imagine that if he had played in those 6 games, he had finished the whole year, he would have had 1,000-yard seasons. He would have had 10 touchdowns. This could have been an A+. So I think Tank Dell and CJ Stroud are going. The problem is they're both going to need to get paid sooner rather than later, and hopefully they both get paid together on the same team, and we can watch that tandem for years to come. But you know how the NFL is. We may not see that. Otherwise, I'm excited for this combo. Kendre Miller was drafted 3rd round, pick 71, and maybe this is just me adding in some personal bias with this grade of a D, and I know you're probably thinking, why is he on this list? I was so excited for Kendre Miller coming into the NFL out of TCU last year, and I thought, what better situation to come into than one where you have a dynamic back in Alvin Kamara, and then you can have a guy who can just run it in between the tackles with Kendre Miller, and they didn't do that. And they signed Jamal Williams before they drafted Kendre Miller, which also didn't make a ton of sense to me, but I thought, maybe they're surrounding him with solid veteran running backs that can help mentor him. Well, Alvin Kamara missed a few games this year. Jamal Williams was injured this year. I know Kendre Miller had a knee injury to start the year, but I just felt it was bizarre that he did not get very many touches. Only 41 carries this year, a total of 96 yards. That is awful. And again, this may be an F, and I don't want to blame him totally. I think a lot of it was coaching, a lot of it was the personnel they used, but really disappointed in this TCU product and what the Saints did with him. So I'm actually going to give the New Orleans Saints franchise a D for how they used him, and maybe it's too critical to give him a D, but hey, D. Josh Downs drafted by the Colts, round 3, pick number 79, and I did not put the stats on here. Josh Downs was taken in round 3, pick number 79, had 68 catches this year, 770 yards, and only 2 touchdowns. I've given him a C. I think this is an average rookie campaign. Alec Pierce wasn't that great for the Colts. I'm not a big Michael Pittman guy, so I did feel like this was a good breakout year for Josh Downs. Maybe if Anthony Richardson had stayed healthy, he would have had a better year. Gardner Minshew was okay. I don't know. I think this is just kind of an average performance, but another guy who could have a solid NFL career. Devon Achane, round 3, pick number 84, quite possibly one of the biggest steals of the draft. Now, keep in mind, these stats are based on the fact that he played 9 games. Now, I put the asterisk here because he technically played in 11, but 2 of those games out of the 11, he only had 1 carry, 1 he got hurt, 1 was his first game in the NFL. So I'm going to count 9 true games, 800 yards, 8 touchdowns. So almost 100 yards a game and almost a touchdown a game. Fantastic year, and that was splitting carries with Raheem Mostert. Now, I know Miami's offense was pretty dynamic this year, so he was the beneficiary of that, but still a fantastic rookie outing, especially for a round 3 pick. He gets an A from me. Aiden OConnell, Raiders quarterback, round 4, pick 135, and the guy who I don't think they really thought they were going to have to deploy this year, but with Jimmy Garoppolo going down, he played 11 total games, went 5-6 in those games, 2,000 yards, 12 touchdowns. I think 12 touchdowns is pretty impressive, and, you know, it's the Raiders. They had a coach firing middle of the year. He was in the mix of all that. I don't think this was necessarily a stat line you write home about, but he got the job done, and for that I've given him a C+. Puka Nacua, I think it goes without saying, this is an absolute A+. Round 5, pick 177. Again, another absolute steal for the Rams in this draft. 1,400 yards, which was a rookie record. Only 6 touchdowns, and I say only because every other one of his stats is phenomenal. This one is pretty low. I think 6 touchdowns is pretty low for these numbers. 105 receptions, which I believe may have also been a rookie record. And he broke not only the receiving yards record for regular season rookie, but he just broke a record this weekend, the most rookie receiving yards in a playoff game against the Lions. An absolute killer year. Puka Nacua, we stand. And our last player, and one that actually is one of the most impressive on this list. And why would we talk about him? He's a kicker, right? And that's kind of the energy that we put out into the world. We don't like kickers. We don't care about kickers. They're just kickers, right? This was an undrafted kicker. The Dallas Cowboys signed him outside of the draft. Okay, this was a soccer player, actually, that they picked up. Let's talk about these statistics because it's actually unheard of, in my opinion. Under 30 yards, he didn't miss a kick. He went 9 for 9. 40 to 49 yards, he went 4 for 4. Didn't miss a kick. 50 yards plus, he went 10 for 10. Did not miss a kick. Over 50 yards, and he hit 10 of them. It's not like he's got a small sample size, right? Almost every other game, more than every other game, he's kicking a 50-yarder and he's hitting it. Let's talk about that 30 to 39 because I have added 2 asterisks, which means I need to explain this. 13 of 15, so he missed 2. He only missed 2 the last game of the year, a cold January game in Washington in the elements on grass, okay? So for 15 straight games, dude didn't miss a kick, and the last game of the year, he misses 2. The first one gets blocked. So I'm going to say bad offensive line situation. They let Washington penetrate, and that's why it gets blocked. So he was going to make it, not his fault. So he only misses 1 kick this year, and it's in Washington, and it hits the upright. So he was a foot away, maybe even less, maybe 6 inches away from having a perfect year kicking as a rookie. A+, A+, A+. Cowboys still lost to Green Bay. Sorry, guys. I know I left some rookies out. I tried to hit the highlights, and I only did offense. Defense is kind of a tangled mess. I don't really love talking about defense. So if you like the content, again, a like, a comment, those things help push this video out to more people. I hate begging. I hate asking, but it's what you got to do. So we'll see you next video. I plan on reacting to a highlight video where every team shows their best play of the year. So stick around for that. It should be out in the next few days, maybe hours if I get around to it. All right, we'll see you next time in that video.